trading day today?
Good.
Yeah,
Yep, pretty good.
let me share my screen
A
here.
little bit better day for a change.
Yeah, I only caught one. And I apologize. My Rhythmic crashed halfway through the day, so I lost a lot of my drawings from earlier in the day. So um, why don't we then just real quick cover the ones that you guys took, and then we can just take a look at it from there. The only one I took was the lower high earlier in the day.
Yes,
But
that's
the one,
one of the ones I took. That was 10:17 CST, wasn't it?
yeah.
Roughly about that time.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one that I took, and I took the higher low back into the range just before around about 9:35 CST as well.
So that would be the higher low. Oh, this one. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, that one.
I had this one marked. I just I said I lost everything for early in the morning. I think these two were the cleanest trades we had today. Rob, did you have anything outside of this?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
you got.
I like that higher low. I had stepped away for a moment and came back, and it had already taken off.
Yeah, and I think you know I'm really trying to in these group study calls help kind of you know reinforce a lot of things that Dan talks about, right? And this is a great example kind of that. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Um, so, we had the conversations about, higher lows, lower highs, when prices are going to make a second leg, right, or second move. This is a perfect example of the reason a higher low is important, right? Because this higher low right here, really, what this is this is the second leg, right? That just fails out. And once we get that higher low with the good signal bar, right? That's how we know, okay, whatever force is pulling down to get to that second leg, what's currently overriding that is this move back to the EMA, right? Um, I would definitely say in this particular move, if we had gotten a green signal bar over here, I would say this would be a situation where you wait for the second leg, right? You either wait for the second leg, wait for the higher low, and that's what you get here, right? So I really just want to reinforce that concept of, the higher low and the second leg, it's the same move. It just manifests itself in different ways, right? I think unless there's anything else on this that anyone saw, I thought it was pretty self-explanatory. Pretty good setup, kind of really bread and butter, so what we're looking for. Especially, and I don't have it all marked out, but when you kind of consider that we never, I would say, throughout today, found our kind of footing as far as what the overall structure is, right? I think the reality is, at the end of the day, it's a really poor range
I think
today.
it's mixed trading.
Yeah, and really, and Robert, you hit on
Yeah,
that.
I had that.
It is mixed trading because this is really, really mixed, right? Where oftentimes in mixed trading, we have
Right.
at least something forming, right? I mean, I will say the only real structure I was able to see throughout the day was, we kind of had this two-legged move in the middle, right? And then this move up here, right? And then things kind of start to change a little bit, right? I knew that the market was kind of changing when we got this move down and we really didn't get close to making this second push down, right? So this is kind of where we talked about the other day where, sometimes we have mixed trading with a bias. Sometimes we just have kind of this mixed trading and we don't really know what's going on, right? Or we have mixed trading and there's something else, but we just don't know what it is, right? I think on a day like today, this is about as pure aimlessly mixed trading as we can have, right? So when we talk about the larger picture versus like the middle term picture and the shorter picture, this is one of those days where I don't think there's really anything or much on a large scale that we're really paying attention to, right? It's really when we talk about, okay, when is it okay to trade the patterns? It's today, right? Like the moves that we have marked and I saw today were, these are really just floating triple tests, higher low back to the EMA, right? You take this lower high off this second entry short with no real concern of what else is going on, right? So with that being said, the lower high here.
Seems like
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say on a day like today, it seems like one of the keys is being careful looking for the bigger channels.
Yes, great point, Robert.
A couple times I tried to draw a couple and there's like nothing looks right and I would just delete them, you know.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, there just weren't any bigger channels.
I think the closest thing I came to finding a larger channel was when we got near here, right? I was like, okay, we have this two-legged move down, right? And then we have this two-legged move up. And then we have this move down and there's no follow through. So there's a part of me that's thinking, okay, maybe there's something at play like this, right? Or, you know, conversely, like this.
I had that at one point, yeah.
But then I felt pretty certain that even if this was here, we had an overshoot here. So by the time you get up here, it doesn't really give you anything, right? So when looking for these larger trend lines, you kind of see where these are things to pay attention to where, okay, pure mixed trading. We have a floating two-legged move here, right? We have another floating two-legged move here. These two-legged moves here in the middle are kind of free of any larger thing, right? So then we have this two-legged move here, we have a move here, and then we would expect prices to make another secondary leg off of this. And when they don't, that's when I'm like, okay, maybe there's a trend here, right? Because we have one push-up, two push-ups, right? Three push-ups, but then we go into an overshoot. So there really wasn't much here, but that's kind of things to be looking for, right? Let me just double check something. I just want to make sure that this is being recorded. Got it. We are. Okay. That's a great point, Robert. I think I saw it in I believe Top G in Discord today, where it's, you know, I think a lot of traders get to a point where they're saying, okay, I've made my mistakes. I'm only going to take second entries with clear STT breaks off key entry points, right? Well, that works in certain days, right? But then you run into a day like today where you're going to not have strong key entry points and you're going to force it. You're going to try to draw something that's not really there. And then what happens is when something's not really there or is very weak, it's very susceptible to being blown up by something else, right? Like, for instance, how many times have we looked at a trade where we have a kind of a trend drawn, right? And the trend, maybe we try to do something like, you know, like that, right? And then you try to trade off that and like, well, why didn't this work? Well, it's because this is such a non-confirmed, not great trend, right? That the other things that are going on are way more powerful and way more, have much more influence, right, on the market. So I feel like that was, you know, a big takeaway from today was, you know, it was relatively straightforward. The only other trade I really saw that I was really looking for an entry was here. So we had this short-term trend up, right? This kind of middle correction, and then we have the secondary push up, right? So on this break, I was looking to enter somewhere short, you know, just because you can see we had the two moves up, right? Now, I was super tempted to take this one, right? But for me, it was, short-term trend up, break. It technically is two legs to a new high, but as we all know that this is a little bit dicey of a two legs up, right? It looks more like one leg, right? I'd say the only thing going for this is the fact that this correction still hadn't made it back to the EMA. So the further we get away on a correction like this, right, where we're more and more likely to make it back to the EMA, right? I was like, well, I'll wait for either the second leg up or a lower high. And we do get the lower high, it comes far away. It takes a while. I wouldn't say it's the best trade, but I just marked it because I think max in the market. But yeah, it's kind of what I saw there. Was there anything
There's
else?
a failed, yeah, there's a failed breakout near the end of the day that was kind of interesting. But it eventually a little up and to the left of your, yeah, right there.
Yeah. Okay.
It does eventually work.
Yeah.
It just sits there and struggles forever.
I was actually tracking that one in real time because, it's one of those things where I think I saw the failed breakout kind of there immediately as well, right? And one second. I mean, we can all look at there and see the failed breakout, right? And I think this is a kind of product of, we like to see mixed trading, right? And we like to see, as much as we call it quote unquote mixed trading, we want to see things kind of get there properly, right? What I mean by that is, I don't know if any of you guys read, I got into a conversation with someone on Discord last night, Pablo, and we were talking about congestion, right? And mixed trading shouldn't be confused with, I'm going to put this. Like, you don't want to confuse mixed trading with like congestion or mixed trading with just chopping to a certain area, right? Mixed trading means that if we are not having anything on the larger time frame, then these middle moves, become like the big fish in the sea, right? The thing that was kind of really kind of tough for me here, right, was from this moment here where we should have gotten a second leg, we've kind of just been chopping up and down, right? This is all just aimless chop, right? Even these shorter term moves aren't really working in a way that, like, I'm not even sure if this is the right trend, right? You could honestly go in this chart and not really draw a trend line from 10 here at PST to almost 11:30 PST, right? There's just not, if you got rid of this, I don't know what any of this is, right? So mixed trading, we have confidence in the fact of A, we can ignore the large time frame, but B, we still want the middle term to be somewhat predictable, right? Now, pros and cons, right? What I did see here, and Robert, just kind of while I was tracking this one, was I was looking at this as a potential two-legged move, right? This is the first time we've had anything that resembles a two-legged move and moving with consistency. The only thing with that and problem with that was because not only was I tracking this, I was tracking potentially this, right? Now, the reason for that is because this is a leg, a middle correction to a second leg, right? So if we're saying that there's nothing larger at play, our general instinct tells us we're going to move back in this direction, right? Now, I think the issue here was we were moving with a bias. So all the way up here, we're making higher highs and higher lows. So as much as we want to say quote unquote mixed trading, there was a general direction of the market, right? And just kind of lastly, the thing that I saw here was we do have a bit of a repeat pattern style move, right? Where it's like we had this move sideways, then break to the bottom, come back up, right? It's the same exact thing that happened right again. I do think this will be marked. I think for you to sit in this for as long as it did, because I was full disclosure, Robert, I was sitting here and I saw it. I was like, someone's probably sitting in this for 5-10 minutes, and it looked.
Yeah, I took it on one account,
Oh yeah.
and I got out at break even +1.
Okay. I mean, I don't blame you.
So, and then right after I got out at break even +1, it went up and would have hit the profit target.
This bar right over here,
Of
right?
course.
Yep.
Yep, that red one right there is the one that got me out at +1. Yeah.
And you know, it's one of those, I don't blame you, right? It's one of those things where I think
Well, it keeps trying and trying, and it's not going anywhere. Sometimes it just it's going to make another leg down.
Mhm.
Well, it's not worth it to. That was my thought at the moment.
Yeah. And what's happening there is this is where sometimes we talk about on these trades, we want room back to the failed breakout area, right? Because really it's a failed breakout to the bottom, but you're running, it's like, support is turning into resistance, right? We've already kind of broken out the top here, or had the break no stream of this, or maybe looking to go back here. But what's happening is this EMA is also moving up here at a slant. So prices are just getting smashed here, right? So
yeah, and the double top I believe was even.
Yeah, it's an even top, yeah. And so this is one of those things where it very easily could have made a second leg down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in all fairness, Robert, where I think I would have gotten out was, I don't know if you saw it attempted to make like a higher low here with no signal bar.
Mm-hmm. I did see that.
I do think it'll be marked. I think conceptually it's based in the right thing. Is just, in all honesty, I hope everyone can see the difference. Like if you were to look at mixed trading from here to about here, right? And then conversely, you look at it from about here to here, right? I don't know. Can you guys see that? Do you guys see the difference between this area of mixed trading versus this area of mixed trading?
Yes.
Yep.
Right? You still have fundamentally two-legged movements over here, right? These moves are, and even within these smaller movements you have, are very, very base principles of trend, two legs back, lower high, two legs to a new low, trend, break, leg up to new high, sideways correction, potentially building this triple test up, right? Versus here, this is just chopping to this price level, right? So I'm happy we had today, just because I've talked about this in the past where not all mixed trading is equal. This is a great example of there's a definite left and right side to it, right? The only other ones I saw from today that people were kind of talking about, if you guys want to talk about, there was this second entry long here to this higher low. Did anyone take these or everything they want to talk about on these?
I didn't take it. I had a massive lag just before that, so I couldn't trust my chart. But from looking at it on yours, I do quite like that.
Yeah. I think for this one, right? I got asked about the triple or this higher low, right? Because I think we can say this and say it from an objective standpoint, right? That conceptually, this entry, right, and this entry are rooted in the same concepts, right? Where you have a trend. I know some people had it like this, right? Me personally, I kept it like that, right? But these are just higher low moves or lower high moves back to retest the extreme, right? Now, there's a couple things here where I think on this one, right? The thing that scares me, and this is very similar for those who were on the call yesterday. We talked about that that higher low, right? Where it was kind of. Let me see if I can grab it. Did Dan post this today? Okay. So that move is very similar in the way it's set up to this move, right? Where you kind of create this higher low that is just kind of sitting here on the EMA rather than kind of fully rejecting off of it, right? Now, conceptually, like this move, right, and the move from today, they're very. I almost compare it more to a triple test, right, versus a true higher low, right? And that's why I don't necessarily love it, just in the sense where I think what's happening here is you have this short-term trend down, right? And really, this is another attempt to find this support. Well, what happens is that prices kind of get too excited before they get there. Probably what happens is people are tracking this support level, and before prices can even make it there, the buying starts to come in. Because we do see that prices eventually make it back down here to the support level. I was actually looking for a trade over here. But this is, I would say, more of a loose interpretation of a triple test rather than a higher low. I think it moves kind of far, right? I do think the second entry long here is a little better because you do kind of create the triple test. You are kind of getting the move down all in one, right? You've already had coming back above the EMA and are breaking above it. But I do like this one better than this one. Does anyone have anything on that?
Would you say that that's an area where you don't really have to worry about congestion in that area?
I think in this area, and are you talking about congestion as far as these stacked bars?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Well, and the uptrend, the way you draw it, already has a new high.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But, these are all thoughts you might have, right? Like
I didn't take this one. Robert, I was, mindful of the congestion, right? I think for me, when this was setting up, I was looking for more. Okay, if we're going to be in this kind of congestive nature, I really want to feel good about what's behind it, right? So I think in the way that it sets up, I like it better, right? Just in the sense where we've attempted to go below the EMA, and on our first retest under, we just shot through, right? We attempted to break the new low, and we do make the new low, and it kind of all in one bar reverses, right? When it has that all in one bar reverse, kind of like here, right, where you kind of have the break new extreme, you expect prices to make it back to the EMA, and that's the first attempted like checkpoint, so to speak, right? I think on this one, we've shown a couple times that this EMA is not really holding. We've come underneath, shot through, right? With no see the system here. We came here and we immediately had rejection off of it, right? Came below the EMA, shot through, came back down, and the entry point was above back the EMA. I think this small triple test right here gives you, I don't want to use the word enough, but it gives you, if you are interested in taking that trade, it gives you the extra reason to take it, right? Really what congestion is in that sense is, okay, so I'm just going to repeat what I put in the Discord last night, right? Really what congestion is, and the reason it's so tricky to take trades out of, is because congestion is like a small range, right? So just like over here, where we have this small range, we are trading the failed breakout, right? When you trade in congestion, you're trading before the failed breakout, right? And even, right, we have this congestive area, Robert, and we get 2 legs out, and the breakout fails, and it comes back in, right? So the congestion here still does what it's supposed to do, right? It's just here we do run the risk of prices coming up here and then coming back in, which they kind of do, right? So you are mindful of the congestion, but when you are in the congestion and you want to trade out of it, you need a couple of reasons that it's almost you're confident that prices are going to reach our price point before the congestion takes over, right? So I think in the general scheme of things, having this support down here, right? And this is where I think I run Discord. This trade is really dependent on how you draw this trend, right? I have it like this, but if you have it like this and feel good about this, then here's the thing, right? Yes, we are congested here. The STT is already broken, had the new low, right? So the STT is done. So also the way the STT plays out, it's flat, right? So yes, this area is congested, but we are taking a bet, right? And that's where we're taking, most trades are kind of like a bet, right? Where we are taking the bet that this, right, having the necessary retest of this, plus having this behind it, this will outweigh the possible failed breakout of congestion, right? These 2 moves are going to say, I get to eat first, right? And then the congestive thing can play out. And that's exactly what happens here, right? It's almost like this wants a retest, right? If we trade out of this congestion up to here, this is going to want to fail breakout back in, right? So when prices get up here, this trend channel wants its retest. This small congestive fail breakout wants to fail, right? So it's in that moment you need to decide, okay, what is more going to take precedence, right? And that even goes back to, I don't know if I can find, I'll see if I can find it, where I talked about when you have, I guess, sort of range area, right? In the middle of another move, right? So as much as this is congested, right? And what congestion is another term for range. This is a transition area off this, right? So although we are moving sideways and finding a support level, right? After a move down, we need to be sure that the bias is completely played out before we start to just say this is its own independent move, right? Where this range, which obviously it isn't because we have other things that are larger that are at play, we need to be careful of calling things a range too quickly before understanding that there's a larger move that's trying to occur, right? Does all that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna see if I can find this. because this YouTube thing really slows down my computer. Okay. So let me see if I can find it here. Okay. Nope, not this one. Okay. It's just something that Pablo posted in Discord last night, right? And he was asking about this move as a triple test and this move as a quadruple test, right? As developing resistance, right? The key here on this is
I could see someone getting on that one.
So here are the two things I mentioned to him, right? Maybe there's a few things. I think by the time we got to this one, right, we've been making higher highs and higher highs and higher lows up to there, right? And that's already a sign in itself, right? But the couple things I notice here are we need to be careful when we draw this range too quickly after this move, right? So this range right here and this sideways movement is a part of this move, right? And we know that after a move like this, we are expecting prices to either reverse, have a sideways correction, or continue in that same direction, right? So you kind of back out here, right? This is a two-legged correction or two-legged move, right? This is a mixed trading on a larger scale, two-legged move, right? So we need to realize that although we are treating this as a range, this move and this eventual move are still trying to occur, right? So when we look at a triple test after a move, we really want it to find its own footing, right? For instance, these two first tests are, although they are occurring around the same price level, right? It's a move down, fail or break to new extreme to a second leg down, right? So these two moves down aren't really moving down because there's resistance here. These two legs are moving down because it is a part of a move to a two-legged to a new low. Does that make sense? Like when these two spots are turning down here.
I'm not sure I quite follow.
Okay. So if we were to get rid of this yellow box, right? This yellow range, right? We would see that this move would still happen, right? Because we have the trend down, right? We have the break and two legs to a new low, or at least attempted to a new low, right? So this two legs down was going to occur whether there was resistance here or not, right? Does that make sense? So although we see it turn down here at these two price levels, by the time we get over here, right, and we're saying, okay, now we're going to rely on this resistance to trade-off move. Well, the reason that these two went down was not because of this estimated resistance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like this turn down here, right? And this turn down here were not as a result of this resistance line, right? This turn down here and this turn down here was a result of the attempted two legs off of this break, right? So although we come back here maybe we can try to leverage it, but when you get this engulfing kind of congested bar, that's when you're like, okay, I don't know if that's what I want to be taking there, right? One second.
I wonder if Dan would say on that one, when you get that quadruple test, you've got all that congestion prior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like Dan will talk about how it gets to an area, even though it's still going down in that particular area. It's like you said, there's engulfing inside bar. Well, no, it's not quite an inside bar, is it? But it's just choppy.
Kind of like how we wrote here, right? Where it's prices are moving up here, but it's moving up with a lack of direction, right? So there's nothing we can really predict out of here, right? Versus you see here, okay, it's mixed, but we at least have decisive movements, right? Pats is really, and I wrote this in the Discord as well, Pats is really fundamentally built upon, where we can have the best predictive moments, right? Well, it makes sense then if prices are acting predictably before, they're going to continue to act predictably. And if prices are unpredictable, we have a harder time predicting where they're going to go, right? That's where, and I'll see if he has another example here. I believe I don't know if this was the best one. Sorry, this is really slowing down my computer. But you see how after this move, right, these resistance levels kind of really develop its own identity apart from the move, right? This sideways move becomes a larger factor, right? He had one that was a good example here. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it's, when you see moves come into these sideways ranges, like see for this one right here, right? When we come up through this move, right? Very similar to the other one we just looked at, you can see that prices very decisively kind of create its resistance, right? And you can kind of see even on this one, we are expecting prices to kind of retest this extreme, and we never quite do. 1, 2, 3 times after, right? So although this is a congestive bar, we can see that prices are distinctly reacting off this move, right? Like this move down, right? That's failed to make. We should have a 2 legs to this new high, right? Well, we don't get that, right? And the reason that we don't get that is because this price level is showing rejection, right? This price level is denying that. So even though we come back up and this is congested here, we've already seen that prices have not acted in the way that we're expecting to because of this previous test here at this level. So even though this is congested, we have the evidence there to take that, right? Versus on this one, right? These touches here aren't being affected by the fact that we're not, like there's nothing here that's giving me clues that this price level is what is creating these moves, right? I'm already expecting a retest of this move down here, right? It's not like this move was saying, okay, this is the price level that's going to reject prices. This was going to happen and this was going to happen regardless of this flat line was here or not. Right? Does everyone see the kind of difference there? I hope so. Um, was there anything else on congestion or on some topics that was discussed last night or today that I want to go through even more?
I'm good.
Well, then let's continue the exercise from yesterday, where we continue just go looking through Dan's entries. And we are on 129. Also, before I continue, have you guys been finding value in this exercise that we're doing, going through all of Dan's entries kind of one by one?
Definitely.
Yes.
All right. So it looks like on this particular day, Dan had two entries, right? Both very similarly rooted concepts. This, I would guess, is an FOMC day. Yeah, FOMC. So why don't we start with the first one? All right. Now, I'm happy that this one's here just because it really builds upon what we've talked about, right? When is it okay to take price trades in congestion, right? Because we just talked about how an engulfing bar is a sign of congestion, right? And we talked about how, excuse me, my voice is starting to go. This is like my fourth meeting today. How engulfing bar is a sign of congestion, and then you kind of have this overlapping two bar right here, right? In this scenario, though, when we have a lack of kind of movement from the overnight, right? And it's kind of like this move down is all we have to trade off of, right? When we're over here, we're still reacting to this move, we're reacting to this move, we're reacting to this, right? Off the overnight, it's very clear there's one move, right? So all we are expecting here is a retest of this move, right? Now, the question here then may be, okay, we're above the EMA. Why aren't we worried about a like a second move up, leg up, right? And really, we do get it. You can see this move right here was the attempt at a second leg off this break new extreme, right? When we have these break new extremes, we're often looking for a kind of two legs out, right? And I think the only thing I see here, right, that kind of really gives you the confidence to take that in the scenario, especially with this correction being so skinny, is it does close below the EMA, right? Do you guys see that? To me, this is a stronger rejective bar. I think if we went to go look at this with Dan, he would say it's a little bit aggressive, but I think the confidence was there that we were going to make the new low here at some point, right? I would definitely say with this one, if someone wanted to skip it, I wouldn't blame them, right? because you can see we do make this attempt. You know, it's something that in this entry we are aware of and we're maybe kind of cautious of, right? But that's kind of where, you know, this is maybe a little more of a roll the dice one. Now, this one's a little more interesting to me, right? This one, I think you are blending a handful of concepts that aren't, neither of them are all that great, but you blend them in a way where you can kind of make the argument, right? So the first thing that stands out to me on this one starts back here, right? Where, okay, we've had this move down, break to a new low, right? We have this attempted move up that doesn't get a retest. So that tells me maybe there's something else going on, right? And we've talked about it, right? Where I look for continual pushes, right? So then you have this push here, which is one leg, to a two-legged correction, to another leg, right? Well, all things being equal, we would then have a leg, two-legged correction, to another leg, right? We don't get that, right? What we get is one leg, two leg, three leg, four leg. So I would then consider, okay, this is a trend channel down, right? See the EMA pointing down, although we're not making it to the bottom, right? I don't think this is a great trend by any means, right? I don't think this is a great second entry short by any means. I don't think this is a great failed breakout, right? But when you have a lack of overall happenings in the market, right? And although in kind of comparing it to the second half of today versus some of the other trades we looked at earlier, you see the difference of, okay, there's a difference between this lack mixed trading with kind of these decisive movements versus when we're just chopping around, right? Because really, on any given day, the reasons that we just mentioned as far as the trend, the second entry short pattern, the failed breakout, could be reasons to stay out of a trade. But I think the fact that there's a lack of other things happening, the movements have been pretty decisive and clear, and we do get a setup where we all have an expectation of where prices are going, that's where you get to enter a trade like this. Did everything I say there make sense? Are there any discussions anyone wants to have on any of those moves, or kind of what occurred there? All right, I'm going to assume that's a no. I would venture to say these were marked green because they're after FOMC, and we like to trade after FOMC. This is another triple test that Dan likes to mark. It's kind of the same thing, just didn't really make it all the way back down. But let me see here. I think we got time for one more. We'll move on to that's 29th. We'll go to 30th. All right. Now, this one, interesting, right? There's a few entries here. This is where sometimes visually things may not set up as clean as we would like, right? But this kind of goes back to understanding, our trend drawing, right? because we can look at it from perspective of this move, right? And this move are rooted in the same concepts, right? This one just sets up so much cleaner, right, than the one from this day. But really, this is you have this move up. I don't love this blue channel anyways, right? But it's essentially been the move down, break, new extreme, higher low. And this is this is one of those where you're kind of just trading back to the EMA, right? I think this was a little riskier considering the strength of the move down, but I think the only thing that we can really see here is just that there's nothing else really convincing here. And we are getting some basic two moves in both directions, right? You have this move from the overnight, this two-legged move here, this semi-spiking channel with these two legs here. So if we get two legs down here, we are expecting prices to at least attempt two legs in the other direction, at the very minimum, make it back to the EMA, right? If someone skipped this just based on the visual.
I wonder if the midline was not there, if he would have still taken it.
That's a great point, Robert. I think at this point of the day, it's tough to call it the midline yet, right? Just because, if you were to go from here to the left, you have an overnight high, overnight low, right? But it is more that kind of 50% retracement. I really do just think this is just a bet back to the EMA and not really asking for much else. And really, it's a bar that sets up in a way where, we have not retested the other side of the EMA in a while, right? I think it's definitely more aggressive, but conceptually, I think we can see what's there. But yeah, I maybe the EMA was there, because especially if you drop the overnight high, overnight lows, you're kind of banking off there was some reaction here, Don't particularly love it. I think it's aggressive, but and I think this is a good example too of when we look at the ones of the triple test that we looked at from today, right? Where, this range, as much as it is, see how on this range, this EMA never really truly flattens out, right? Because it's a whole part of this other move, right? So as much as sometimes we like to draw these sideways correction ranges after a move, oftentimes and sometimes we still need to be careful of the next move happening and disrespecting or not showing enough respect to the range that we have drawn, right? And on this one, I think that personally, I would have waited for a second leg up. Usually when you see a move like this, I think for me, if this would have already tested the EMA, I would for sure stay to this. And this is where we talk about, okay, how do we know when we're safe to take a trade after one leg up on the break new extreme versus two legs up? Well, we do get the two legs up here, right? This is a perfect price action move. 1, 2, right? Now, we can set ourselves best up for success when you create this room and this width back to the EMA. Now I'm looking at this, I'm 90% sure I took this trade too. Remember Dan and I talked about this one. This was before I had really, really studied, when we get a first leg versus when we get a second leg, right? But this is a just, simple trading's mixed, okay? We have nothing that's holding on a larger time frame, right? But you can see why it kind of struggles. We have 1, 2, right? We have 1, 2. We have 1, and you're trying to go short when there's an attempt at a 2 that's being made, right? So you can really save yourself a lot of headaches by giving yourself room back to the EMA. But, you know, on a day like on this, where we have shown pretty consistent movement, you can also attempt to make trades like this back to the EMA. Were there questions on that one? We're at the hour. I think we'll call that one there. I do for the group. We've kind of, posting these things on